Okay guys, I thought I'd do a little bit of a video outlining the process of setting your installed height for your valve springs on a set of cylinder heads. These are for the All Pro LS heads. We were looking to get 1.8 installed height for, sorry about that, playing with the tripod again. But we were trying to get a 1.8 installed height. At first, I thought that there had to have been something amiss because I was measuring my free length, and that's with a valve installed, micrometer pulling the retainer and locks up, as high as it can go. So you measure between the bottom of the retainer and your spring pad on your head. And I was really confused in my previous video when I was talking about my valve spring micrometer I bought, because that valve spring micrometer didn't come with any instructions whatsoever. Okay, when you buy something, you just get a tool in a cheap plastic container with a part number. They don't give you any information at all, because apparently they just figure, oh, well, if it's a valve spring micrometer, you should know how to use it. The problem is the way they designed their micrometer, the scale that is calibrated or printed or used for their tool assumes that you are going to use the outside. Let me get up here where you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so what they're doing is the scale that they use on their tool assumes that you're going to use this as your measuring platform. So any valve springs that would use this smaller than this outside steps, if you can see it there, apologize. Any valve spring retainer that fits in that machine's secondary groove or area on the tool, that's going to cause you to have an issue where you have to adapt, you have to subtract. Basically, all they needed to do was put a little piece of paper in there that says, if you use the outside of the tool, our measurements would be accurate. I did verify that if you use that outside ledge or outside part of the micrometer, it's perfectly accurate. No complaints. I compared it to my vernier calipers. It's 100% ready to go, no complaints. What I had to do was measure that inside step on the top of the tool, which turns out to be 140 thousandths deep. Okay, well, that's no big deal. There again, put a little piece of paper in the tool that tells you, if you use the outside, use our scale. If you use that inside step to measure your height, subtract 140 thousandths from what you get on our scale. Seems like a logical thing to do, but apparently I'm the only one who thought of it. But, so basically, when I measured my free length from valve spring pocket and head to the base of the retainer at its fullest extension, I was getting 2 inches 72 thousandths, 2.072. So then I was thinking, okay, my God, why does this thing have so much free space? Because when I was deducting 1.800 from it, I was getting way over, because in a perfect world, when you assemble a set of heads, you would like to see yourself using 15, 30, or maybe a 60 thousandth shim and being done with it. I'm stuck here going, okay, I have to account for 132 thousandths in shims, just in shims alone. And I'm going, what? Why would this thing have so much free space? So I started measuring the valves. I'm thinking, okay, this head either comes with, or the customer purchased, like a plus 100 thousandths valve. That makes perfect sense. Only comparing it and measuring it, the valve is just a hair longer, Most LS valves are between 4900, 4930, and all these valves measured at 4950. Okay, yeah, great. We've accounted for 20 thousandths of this 132 thousandths distance. So I'm thinking, okay, so the valves aren't particularly longer than stock, not enough to cause this discrepancy. So talked to a couple of my machinist friends, and they said, yeah, it does happen. There are situations on some engines where you would, delete an exhaust rotator or something along those lines, and you would come up with this lot of higher than normal amount of area you have to shim up. And I'm like, okay, so what's my best plan of attack? And of course they said, you need to find a way to positively locate the spring, but also fill that gap with as few shims as possible, because you don't want to have any issues with it trying to move around or do anything dumb. I said, okay, that sounds legit, Now, if you were using a two-piece setup where you had a positive seal and a spring locator that were not connected, let me just go ahead and point that out right now. If you were using a two-piece setup where you had a spring locator and your positive seal were not connected, you would put your shims underneath the spring locator. Okay, I hope everybody follows what I'm saying. You would put the shims underneath the locator, and that way you would maintain that stepped piece of the spring locator to hold the bottom of the spring. Problem was, his setup uses one piece, it's a factory style, positive seal, with the spring locator all in one piece. So now you have this integrated locator seal piece, and you can't put the spring or the shims underneath this piece, because what will happen, and I'm hoping you guys can see it in the video, I've drawn two black lines on there with a Sharpie. I hope you guys can see that. If you look at the bottom line and the top line, that's all the distance you have of contact to your valve guide. Okay, that's all this piece is able to grab when you have it hammered down on the guide until it sits flush on the spring seat. So basically, you can't move that hat or that one piece up without losing the ability to seal properly to your guide. So what I had to do was put this one piece locator and seal assembly on first. Then I went and bought a pack of, let's see if I can get them over here where you can see them a little bit. I had to go buy a pack of 30 thousandths and 60 thousandths shims. So what that allowed me to do was, the 60 and the 30 is 90. The actual spring locator from Felpro was 40 thousandths thick. So, not to get too convoluted with math, my free length was 2.072. I was able to assemble, or you would deduct 140 thousandths from that number. So your effective free length is 1.932. 1 and 932 thousandths is your free space. So I have to try to come up with 132 thousandths to try to fill that in. So you add together your 40 thousandths for your locator, 60 thousandths, 30 thousandths. So now you're at 130 thousandths. Okay. It is better for you to assemble this with the installed height of 1.802 rather than try to add another shim to this setup, because the smallest shim they sell is 15. So when I go look at shims, you're looking at 15 thousandths, 30 thousandths, or 60 thousandths. In order for me to get any closer by, and I would argue with anybody, two thousandths of an inch is not going to make a difference in your spring pressure that you're going to be able to practically even measure. It's not even going to be a big deal. But I would say don't go throw another 15,000 shim on there, because now you're going to drop your effective max lift by that additional 13 thousandths. So let's say those LS6, I think he said, yeah, those LS6 valve springs, I believe, have a max lift of around 570. So now let's say we're like, oh, we can't get to a true 1/800. We're over by 2 thousandths of an inch. Oh, I'm going to throw this 15 thousandths in there and just give it extra seat pressure. Now you've dropped it where it can only run, 570 minus 13. So you're looking at, what, 67? Now you've dropped from a 570 down to a 567 lift. And if there's any variables, that need to be taken care of, that could be an issue. What if someone had plans on running a slightly bigger cam, or, that's why you should always talk to your machinist or the people setting up your heads, because you want to make 100% sure you never bind that spring. You do not want to fatigue it, and you don't want to coil bind, stack those coils together, because you'll jack up an engine really fast. But I just wanted to go through the process with you of how to properly measure your free distance between your spring pad and the bottom of your valve spring retainer, and figure out, okay, do I have a two-piece locator and seal setup? Do I have an integrated one-piece setup like this LS head uses? And get this thing dialed in so you can get that valve spring in its happy space, where it's going to provide the seat and open pressures that it's designed for, and be matched up properly with your camshaft. So, and remember, you start changing rocker arm ratios, you can go up on your, you're going to change the lift on that valve, and you need to make sure you got plenty of room with your spring for the lift. And a lot of people don't forget that distance, that measured distance between the bottom of your valve spring retainer and your actual valve seal. A lot of people forget about that, and you'll pull valve covers off and you'll see where that retainer has just beat the holy crap out of that valve seal, and not, some of them just come apart. You'll find little springs, because the top of those positive seals have like a little spring built into it. It'll literally beat that thing so bad it knocks that spring out of there. That's a bad, bad, bad situation. So anyway, look at that installed height, set your spring pressures to work properly with your cam, and always, always check that distance between the bottom of your valve spring retainer and your valve guide seal, because that ends up being a lot of problems for people that they don't even think about checking. So anyway, I just wanted to do a video about these all-pro heads, exclaiming to the world that it wasn't near as hard to figure out how to make my new valve spring micrometer work. Had they just added a small little piece of instructions in there, it would have saved a lot of aggravation. But I just thought, man, as nice as this tool looks, how in the world could it be this far off on its measurements? And then it dawned on me, okay, I got a machined inner surface and outer surface. This has to be what happened, and common sense took over and everything was fine. But I just wanted to give you guys an update, and I'll try to make another video soon. Thank you.